You are now listening to the Growing and Becoming podcast.
Hello, friends of the podcast. Happy New Year. Welcome to the year 2025. Our last episode was on Christmas Day, I believe. Yeah. And I know I already told you. I already told you Happy New Year in advance because I knew that the chances of me coming back to record another episode between Christmas and New Year was very thin. So yeah, Happy New Year. Welcome to a fantastic New Year. I'm really praying that the year 2025 will be good to us. I pray that this year will be that year where your relationships actually go from one level to the other and they thrive. Last year was quite tough for me personally, but it was also a good year. It was one of those years that was obviously difficult and challenging, but then there were also lots of good times, great memories, miracles, a million little miracles, but then also a few big roadblocks and challenges here and there. But all the same, I give all glory to God. And I'm trusting, in fact, I'm so confident that 2025 is off to a great start and it will go smoothly. I will have more wins than losses, more successes than failures, more good times than bad times, more high times than low times. And I pray the same for you. This year, GB Pod will continue to thrive. I'm praying that we'll have more listeners this year. So please love up on the podcast, just show us some love. I have some really grand plans. I cannot say what my year will look like. I can only watch and see. That's why I don't want to announce anything prematurely, but I'm still planning. I'm still grinding. I'm still pushing, still going on with everything that I have planned in my head. I'm praying to God for strength and direction and the right opportunities as well to bring all of these plans to life. But yeah, I'm really excited for the podcast this year. And I know that you all be here cheering me on. I will also be carrying you along to the best of my ability. Anyways, I hope you have all been well yourselves. I hope that you have been planning your year, or at least you have planned your year. If you haven't, it's not too late to plan the rest of your year. I mean, we're just 8 days in, so you can definitely plan your year. I hope that you are setting realistic goals. Please don't set goals that will make you feel frustrated at the end of the year. My husband and I have this family ritual. What used to be personal, and then we've come together as a unit and we do it as a family. And so what we do at the end of the year is to review our lives as individuals and as a couple. So we set goals at the end of every year, ahead of the following year. And then at the end of that year, we review everything and then set our goals. So last year, sometime between Christmas and New Year, we went to the library to sit down and review our year, review all the goals that we set for ourselves the previous year, and assess ourselves like, oh, did we achieve everything that we wanted to? If we didn't, why? And what can we do differently? Well, firstly, my goals for 2024, I would say that it was a good year in terms of doing the things that I wanted to do. There were some things that I did not do, like learning how to drive, but that's not my fault. My life changed drastically in the middle of the year, and I just couldn't factor that in. I also did not factor it into this year because I'm like, you know what, if it happens, it happens. I know some of you are probably there judging me like, oh, it's just learning how to drive, you're making excuses, that's your business. So things like that were not ticked off my list. And I just had to really rework how I set my goals, because I found that there were certain things that I put in there, and then I'm like, why did you set your goal this way? Because how are you going to achieve this? It's not specific, it's not measurable, it's not a smart goal. It's just, an idea. You just want to achieve something, but then you really set the goal in a way that is achievable. So that really got me thinking of how best to reshape how I think of my goals and how I approach them. And I've been able to feed that into this year's goals. So for some of you, you may have set your goals already, but I want to kind of urge you to go back, especially if you feel like they're not specific enough. Please break them down, because that way is better. Rather than set a goal like, I want to learn how to drive. For example, I want to get my driving license, for example. Maybe you could do things like, I want to be able to do my theory test. For some people, they might have been able to take off the theory test, but then couldn't get around to doing the practical test. That's not a bad thing. You've achieved something and it's worthy of, a pat on the back. So maybe have a think around how you set your goals so that way you're not putting so much pressure on yourself, or you don't feel too bad. You feel like you haven't done anything throughout the year because you set this mighty goal and you didn't break it down into specific, actionable, smaller, short-term goals. And then one thing that I did this year as well, I was very intentional about setting goals for my relationships. And that's what this episode is about. Friends, I hope and I pray that you did not neglect your relationship goals. Whilst you're setting your career goals, some of you might even lump relationship goals under personal development somewhere, or career. Maybe like, I want to do better with networking, or I want to make more friends this year. What do you mean by you want to make more friends this year? You will make friends this year. As long as you are not living under a rock, you will meet people. There are new people that will come into your life, or old people who would have who would transit from one level in your life to the other. So that's not it. But we're going to have a whole section for your relationship goals. What do you want to see differently in your relationship life? So for me, what I did was to set. My book isn't here. That would have been good to just refer to what I've done. But anyways, you can have a whole section for your relationship life. So I called I think it was family and relationships, or relationship development, something. Whatever you want to title it, that's fine. But relationships, essentially. And then under that, I had two subsections. The first one is my family, and then I had my friendships. So for me, I have two specific subsections: family and friendships. So for my family, some of the things I had to think back, like what aspects of my relationship with my siblings, my parents, my in-laws, my extended family members, what aspects of those relationships could be better? What am I missing? And also looking back to previous years, what has worked well and what hasn't. In the previous year, I can confidently say that I spoke to my parents more, I spoke to my siblings more, but I want to do it even more in this year. So I'm thinking, okay, what did we do right that we can then replicate and maybe intensify in the coming year? So things like talking more on the family group chats. That's a way of communication. And that's a realistic way of communication for me and my family. For some other people, they have to video call each other every day. I ain't gonna do that. I'm sorry, but I don't know how people do it. And I think it's such a beautiful thing. But it's really important that you know what works for you and your family. Don't go and set goals that you know cannot be achieved, at least not right now or not immediately. Actually knowing that relationship is a two-way street, you might be thinking, oh yeah, I want to be like this family that video calls their parents every day and everything. But you know that your dad is a very busy person and he works round the clock. When he's back from work, he's busy. He's trying to do one or two things around the house. Your mom is super busy. She works. She has a business. She has to, make herself available as a wife, as a mom, as a sister, as an in-law, and she's spreading herself thin. So one goal that I set for myself was I wanted to be speaking to my family more often. So I put a number of calls that I can be making in a week. It might not be every day. I know myself. I know my family. We ain't going to talk every day on the phone, obviously. But then I can now set a goal saying I will send a message on the group every day. That one is very possible for me. So that's a more realistic way to set the goal. So you can just set small, achievable goals like that. So that when you are assessing your year, You're not looking at this big mighty goal of, I want to be closer to my siblings or something that's just really, really big and vague. And then you're not sure whether to take yourself good, like, oh yes, this has been achieved or not, right? But then something as simple as, I want to be able to send messages to my family group every day or X number of times in a week. Those are achievable goals. I also want to say here that if you did it 8 out of 10 times, you succeeded. I don't know about how other people evaluate their goals, but for me, if you manage to do it 8 out of 10, you succeeded. 7 out of 10, you succeeded. Anything below average, okay, you know that, not so much, right? So don't expect that, okay, the day that you don't message them on the group, that means you've lost it, like your goal was not achieved. Not exactly. The world is not black and white like that, right? So you set how you want to measure your own success. What are your own, KPIs or whatever? How do you want to measure the success of this particular action that you have set out for yourself to achieve in the year? So some of the things that you should consider when setting your relationship goals. How do you want to improve your communication with your family, your friends, your partner, whatever? Oh yeah, I was supposed to say, in my relationships, there's family, my relationship with my husband, my relationship with my parents, and all of that. So yeah, couple relationships also there. So if you have a boyfriend or whatever, put that in. I also have a section separately for family anyway. But yeah, just throw it in there. So back to what I was saying. Some of the key things that you need to consider when setting your relationship goals. The first thing, communication. Are you going to improve on your communication style, your communication frequency? Everything around communication, essentially. How frequently do you want to call your friends? Set the goal. Don't just say, I'm going to talk to my friends more this year. What does more look like? If you want to do a check-in call with your friends once every month, I think that's a beautiful thing to do. If you want to do it every week, fine. Depending on your schedule, depending on what works for you and your friends, please by all means set the goal. So yeah, your communication. Sorry, I don't feel good. Oh Lord. So your communication, and then you also want to consider your intimacy, especially for couples, if you're married or dating someone. What can you both do to improve the level of intimacy that you share? For non-married people, obviously, if you are a fan of this podcast, you know that I am all pro abstinence, so don't even play. So your intimacy doesn't necessarily have to be sexual. Even for the married people, sexual intimacy is up there on your list, but also think of, other aspects of intimacy. How do you want to make yourself more emotionally available? It's really important. So you can think of things like date nights or vulnerability. So maybe you could say, in this year, I'm going to be more vulnerable with my friends by keeping them in the loop on anything that's going on in my life. So you can say, maybe every week you set a reminder to remind you, like, update your friends on any new happenings. It's a very realistic thing to do. Set a reminder throughout your week. Surely something has happened, and don't overthink it. If something interesting happened with your boss, share it. Those are the things that really build your intimacy. When you're vulnerable with the little things, you can be vulnerable with the big things as well. So do not overthink the things that you're sharing. Don't feel like, something isn't intimate enough or it's not important enough for you to talk about. Everything is important to talk about. Talk about how you feel. Talk about the food that you ate. Talk about this really nice dog that you saw on your walk home. Everything. Talk about everything. So I know it's still kind of hinged on the whole aspect of communication, but in this point, we're focusing on how we're building that emotional connection. So make sure that when you are communicating, you are not just saying things. You are meaning it. you are invested, you're interested as well in hearing back from them. So you check on them as much as possible. Check on them, find out what's going on in their life, right? But essentially, this point is more about you opening yourself up. You can communicate by, catching up and saying, "Oh, my day was fine. Oh, yeah, I was good." Mm-mm. Be deep about it. Go deeper. Talk about your wins, your losses. Talk about the difficulties that you're facing. Be more open and vulnerable. Let people in this year. So set your goals around that. In terms of meeting people this year, so some of you might be looking to make new friends this year, or maybe find a potential romantic partner this year. You can set goals around that. Like, that's absolutely fine. But then what does that look like? Please don't say things like, "I want to meet people this year." We all want to meet people this year. What do you mean by that? If you say things like, "I will be more intentional about," or rather, you could say things like, "I'm going to attend at least one event every quarter," depending on how much of an outside person you are. If you are someone that is always outside, maybe you can say once a week or every day. I really don't know people who go out every day, but kudos to you. You can say once a week, once a month, however you want to do it, once a quarter. Attend an event and network with people, go out, meet people, go to a party. If your friends invite you over for a get together, please say yes, go. So you can set that as a goal and, set reminders on your phone to remind you that, oh, at the end of the quarter, this is something you actually plan to do. So check in on yourself. Maybe halfway through the quarter, you can set a reminder how far with your goal, with XXX goal. So you can set achievable goals like that. Going out is not rocket science. So that's a specific goal. You can measure it. Did you go out or not? If the answer is not, then that means you didn't do what you said you were going to do. So yeah, measure your goals. Set goals around meeting people. How do you want to meet people? When you meet people, what do you want to do? What sort of people are you looking for? All of that. If you're saying you're looking for a potential partner, then you should be preparing towards a dating relationship. What kind of books on relationships are you going to read? How many books are you going to read? Have you thought about them? Are you going to attend any conferences this year? You might not know of any at the moment, but you could just say, I want to attend one conference this year or one program this year. It can be virtual, that. So that's a good way to think about your improving your relationship life. Think about how you as a person will better yourself for the relationships that you are seeking. And think about opportunities that will link you up with the people that you want to be in a relationship with. So I just thought to really share that with you. Another thing that I think is really, really important in terms of setting your relationship goals is evaluating your current friendships. The people in your life at the moment, not just friendships anyway, relationships in general. The people in your life at the moment, are they good for you? This is the time where you check yourself. And are you also good for them? Check yourself, check your relationships, evaluate those relationships, question everything, scrutinize everything. How does this person treat me? Is this what I want to be? Is this the kind of treatment I want to receive going forward? Or do I want something different for myself? Ask yourself these very difficult questions. Check in with your friends as well. You could even ask your friends, like, how can I love you better this year? How can I be a different friend for you this year? What can I do for you in this season of your life? One thing that is happening to me at the moment, and I think is such a beautiful way to start my year, my friends have been very intentional about showing up for me. I was saying to someone yesterday, like, the level of love that I've been receiving, I cannot fathom it. It feels strange. It doesn't feel strange. No, scratch that. It doesn't feel strange, obviously, but it's just so overwhelming, when like, oh my God, this is such a wonderful thing. And I never take the love and care that my friends pour on over me for granted. I never take things like that for granted. That's why at every point where, I am receiving all this love and care and attention, it will always be a big deal for me. I don't want to ever get to a point where I'm now seeing everybody finish. Even though, yes, it's something I'm used to. I'm used to people making sacrifices for me. I'm used to people going out of their way for me. I don't want to ever get to a point where I'm like, oh yeah, that's normal. No, because people are busy. People can choose not to, but my friends are choosing to do so. As much as, yes, they are my friends and, you could say, well, they're supposed to do that. Well, yeah, but at the same time, it's really important that we appreciate them. But scratch that. So yeah, in this season of my life, my friends have really been going out of their way for me. I have friends who are traveling 4 hours across the country just to come and spend a night or 2 days with me. And I'm like, what? So yeah, think of what you can be doing for your friends this season. How do you want your friends to love you? Ask your friends, what can they do for you? My friends are, constantly asking me, what you want? Are you good? What do you want to eat today? Let me buy you something. I'm like, oh my God, thank you. I love it so very much. So you can ask, be specific. It's also part of being vulnerable and building the intimacy. Ask them, just be like, oh, hi, darling. How are you feeling? What do you want me to do for you? I know I'm saying this about friendships, but also do it with your siblings. Check in on them, ask them, what can I do for you this time? Is there anything that you would want me to do differently? There was a time I did an evaluation of my friendships and I did it anonymously. So I sent out a link to them to just write a few things about me or to answer a few questions. So I was doing self-evaluation. I needed to be better that year. And I sent it to a few people. And I noticed that there was one person who did not have nice things to say about me. At first, I didn't know who he was. I was trying to decide between two people in my life at the time because I initially had a fallout with one of them. But then I looked at these responses. I'm like, this doesn't sound like what this person would say. I mean, I know that we had a fight, but like, this is not a nice thing to say about your friend. And yeah, just in case you're wondering, I'm not friends with her anymore. I can't deal with that. Because if your friend, is given an opportunity to speak about you and they don't have nice things to say about you, especially knowing that you've never really had any issues in the past, like, so where is this coming from? You don't need that kind of energy in your life. And if the person is not remorseful about it, if they can't even be upfront and tell you if you are, acting out of line, or if they're not happy with you, if they had to wait for an opportunity to do it anonymously behind your back, then I don't know what to say. But yeah, you could adopt that method. I'm not telling you to do what I did because you might be shocked at some of the things you might find. But yeah, that's something I did. I don't regret it because people had lots of really good things to say and they were all, similar, and it made me realize, the aspects of myself that I really project more towards my friends. And, I was happy about that. And also in that form, they also got the opportunity to say what I can do differently in our friendships. And some people says, well, I wish you could call me more. I want you to carry me along more and all of that. And it made me realize, oh, true. I actually don't think that I do this often, or I do that often. So feedback loop is a great way to kind of evaluate your relationships. Have some sort of a feedback mechanism that you could adopt, and just check in with your friends. Check how you can serve people better and how people can love you better. Check your relationships and be sure that they are what you want. If you find that a relationship is no longer good for you, then think of how you want to ease your way out of it, or what kind of conversations you would then have with the person. And also check that some of the relationships that you are ending, be sure that you're doing the right thing. I've seen people end relationships that I'm of the opinion that it should not have ended. It's not worth the end. I've also been in that position where I've ended some relationships. I'm like, should I have fought a little bit more? Sometimes it's hard to really tell, but we trust God, that God will give you the wisdom and discernment to know what to do. And at any point where you're about to make the wrong call, by His mercy, your steps will be redirected and you will not do the wrong things. So constantly pray over your relationships. That will be the last thing I'll say. This year, how are you going to pray for your relationships? How are you going to pray for your friends, your family, your spouse, your siblings? Pray for people. You can do all these things. You can take all these steps, set all these goals. But at the end of the day, covering them spiritually is so important. Cover your relationship. Some of us have prayed for our future spouse a billion and one times. Gone to Shiloh, gone to the altar. In fact, we've gone to the highest mountain in this world to kneel before God and pray for our husbands, our wives, most oftentimes husbands. But then I find that not a lot of people pray over their friendships. Cover your friendships in prayer. Cover your relationship with your siblings in prayer. Not just pray for them to prosper. Obviously, they'll prosper, they'll be in good health, lovely stuff. Pray for the relationship that exists between both of you. Pray that nothing will come between you. So it's very important that you cover those relationships. You see, the devil is not smiling, or he is not. So yeah, please be intentional about covering your friends in prayer this year. And I think that's everything for me. Obviously, if I do have some more to share, I'll just post them on the social media, Instagram mostly. Well, yeah, lovely catching up with you guys on this very beautiful day. I pray once again that as you set these goals, there is wisdom for you, there's strength for you. And even when the going gets tough, there's strength for you to keep going, keep pushing, because relationships are not easy. They're not meant to be easy breezy all the time. Most of the time, yeah. But then, there's a lot of work and commitments that will go into it if you really want to see the results. So yeah, rooting for you. And I will speak to you on the next episode. Bye, friends.